When Vance was young, he had a secret relationship behind his family's back. His first love passed away early, leaving only the dog they raised together to keep him company. We've been married for 3 years and this dog has never liked me. It shredded my clothes and sent me to the hospital several times by biting me. Friends stood up for me, but Vance's tone was cold. It's just a bite. Why are you making such a big deal out of it? After I got pregnant, I suggested we send the dog away to be fostered elsewhere. Vance responded impatiently. If you can live with it, stay. If not, let's get a divorce. Why are you so petty all the time? In the past, hearing this would make me feel ashamed and I would back down. But this time I looked at the mess around me and stayed silent for a long time. The bite mark on my shoulder had just scabbed over and it still ached. I said, then let's get a divorce. It was the 3rd day since I was admitted to the hospital. Vance finally came to see me. I sat on the hospital bed, my eyes downcast, waiting for the doctor to change my bandages. Outside the room, voices were raised as friends stood up for me. Vance, how many times has Blizzard bitten Ellie now? This time it got her shoulder. Any higher and it could have been her neck. Blizzard was Vance's dog, a Rottweiler with a fierce temperament. This wasn't the first time it had bitten me. When I first married Vance, it bit my calf. But this time was the worst. Half of my shoulder was covered in blood, the flesh torn open, a horrifying sight. Honestly, that dog is dangerous. You should get rid of it. Ellie's been so good to it and it's still so ungrateful. Exactly, Vance. Be careful it doesn't bite you next. That dog's untamable. The voices grew louder, everyone criticizing Blizzard's viciousness. When Vance walked in, his expression was grim. The doctor gently changed my bandages. But no matter how careful he was, the wound on my shoulder still hurt so much that my face turned pale, and a thin layer of sweat formed on my forehead. Vance stood at the door, silently watching everything. After the doctor left, Vance's first words were, "It's just a bite. Why are you making such a big deal out of it?" He frowned, looking at me as if I were being unreasonable. "Ellie, you're in your 20s and you're still tattling like a child. How embarrassing." Someone had told Vance's mother about my hospitalization. Our families were close and Vance and I had grown up together. Vance's mother was furious and sternly ordered him to get rid of Blizzard. Vance thought I had complained behind his back, stirring up trouble. It all made sense now. No wonder he hadn't come to see me in the hospital. He was angry with me. I almost laughed, but the movement tugged at the wound on my shoulder. It hurt as if the pain had seeped into my bones. Suddenly, I remembered the early days of our marriage. It was my first time meeting Blizzard. I knew Vance had a dog, so I carefully selected a bunch of dog food and toys to bring with me. But the moment Blizzard saw me, it bared its teeth and without warning bit my calf. When my mother came to see me at the hospital, I reassured her, "It's okay. It's just scared of strangers. Why make a fuss over a dog?" I was afraid my family would scold Blizzard or think less of Vance. Back then I was young and naive, filled with hope for our marriage. I never imagined those words would later become my nightmare. When Blizzard tore my dress, Vance frowned and told me to stop making a scene. When it rolled in mud and ruined the bed, Vance scolded me for being petty. And now, with my shoulder torn and bleeding, Vance still said the same thing. Told me not to be so sensitive, not to make a big deal out of a dog's behavior. I used to comfort myself. Vance wasn't a cold stone. He was starting to like me. He would make me brown sugar water during my period. He drove 10 hours overnight to celebrate my birthday at my workplace. But now I could no longer deceive myself. After 3 years of marriage, I had never received Vance's true affection. After being discharged from the hospital, I took a taxi straight back to my family's home. My mother was delighted to see me, but her eyes filled with pain when she saw my shoulder. I lied, telling them it was just a superficial wound that would heal in a few days. During my recovery at home, Vance didn't call once. Somehow he had convinced his mother. Blizzard was still with him, not sent away. During our Cold War, Vance posted on social media, "Not many things remain from her. Blizzard is one and I am another." He was referring to Celeste. When Vance was young, he had a secret relationship behind his family's back. She was his first love, the woman he loved most. Unfortunately, she died young, passing away in an accident just 2 years later. The comments were filled with sympathy. Celeste was such a wonderful person. If she were still here, she and Vance would have been married by now. Vance is so devoted. I heard he was heartbroken after her death and even tried to take his own life several times. Someone asked, "What about Ellie? Why did you marry her?" A string of replies followed. What does Ellie matter? If Celeste were still here, Vance wouldn't even glance her way. Exactly. But life goes on. Seeing Vance settle down and build a career, Celeste would be happy for him in heaven. Amid the comments belittling and mocking me, I saw Vance's reply, succinct and to the point, settling. A few days later, Vance started appearing in public with a girl. Her name was Sasha, an intern at his company who looked strikingly like Celeste. In the photo, Sasha was crouching, hugging Blizzard's head affectionately. The usually fierce Blizzard looked unusually docile. And Vance stood nearby, gazing at the girl and the dog with a tenderness he had never shown me. The day Vance and I got married, the weather wasn't great. The clear sky suddenly turned overcast. Perhaps that was a sign of how our marriage would turn out. Damp and cold, forever overshadowed by Celeste. But I had been naive, optimistically comforting myself. The clouds will pass and we'll have sunny days ahead. Later I realized that the living can never compete with the dead. Because Celeste was gone, Vance could marry anyone. I was foolish, always dreaming of healing Vance and helping him move on. But I forgot. Vance never cared for my companionship. And now, stripping away the false warmth, Vance had passed his judgment on me. 3 years of marriage reduced to settling, nothing more than my own wishful thinking. 2 weeks later, Vance finally couldn't sit still anymore. He called, his tone accusatory from the start. "Are you done throwing a tantrum? When are you coming home?" Perhaps remembering the wound on my shoulder from the hospital, his tone softened slightly. "Don't take it out on Blizzard. Dogs of this breed are naturally protective. It took Celeste a long time to tame it when she first brought it home." Vance's voice trailed off as if he realized he had said too much. He awkwardly changed the subject. "Anyway, I've trained it now. Pack your things and I'll pick you up this afternoon." The car ride home was eerily silent. Vance's tone was stiff as he handed me a bag. "I bought this for you. Your favorite grilled rice cakes." I didn't take it. The doctor had advised against eating spicy or greasy foods while I was recovering. But Vance clearly didn't care. When I didn't take the bag, he thought I was still sulking. Vance sneered and threw the bag into the trash. "Fine, don't eat it." The already tense atmosphere grew even more awkward, cold enough to freeze. No one spoke for the rest of the ride. It wasn't until we got out of the car and opened the door that the tension eased slightly. "You like the latest collection from X brand, right?" I bought everything and put it in the closet. To be honest, Vance wasn't entirely bad to me. He remembered my birthday and every important anniversary. He never hesitated to buy me gifts and even gave me his credit card PIN. After every fight, he would shower me with gifts to make up for it. So I always thought he was just stubborn, but deep down he cared. I despised myself for still holding on to a sliver of hope for Vance. I held my stomach, trying to stay calm as I opened the door. But instead of the beautiful, elegant clothes I expected, I was met with chaos. The bed, the couch, everything was covered in shreds of fabric. The wedding photo in the center of the room had been torn apart. Pieces of the red dress fluttered in the air before slowly falling to the ground. Mixed with shards of glass, it looked like a pool of blood. Blizzard lay in the middle of the bed, covered in grass and dirt. It had sneaked into the garden and rolled around on purpose. Vance was also stunned. He frowned and called Blizzard over. When he saw me, his expression turned uneasy. "I didn't know it would do this. It's just a few clothes. I'll buy you new ones. Don't blame Blizzard." Blizzard slowly walked over, deliberately bumping into my calf as if to assert dominance. It had something in its mouth. When I pried it out, it was a bracelet. Vance's face immediately changed and he instinctively kicked Blizzard. "Why do you bite everything? Do you even know whose this is?" Blizzard might not have known, but I did. It was the bracelet Celeste had given Vance. Vance treasured it, treating it with care, unlike our wedding rings. After it fell from Blizzard's mouth, it rolled into the shards of glass. Vance was too busy worrying about the bracelet to spare me a glance. I walked over and picked up the wedding ring. "Blizzard is too destructive. We should send it away to be fostered." I took a deep breath. "If you want me to calm down, then send Blizzard away." I could tolerate and compromise when I was alone. But now that I was pregnant, I couldn't risk any danger to my child. Vance looked up, his voice cold and warning. "Ellie, don't push your luck. Being this petty is unlike." I held my stomach, cutting him off. "Either I leave or Blizzard leaves. You choose." My refusal to back down infuriated Vance. He stood up, kicking a nearby chair, his tone impatient. "If you can live with it, stay. If not, let's get a divorce." "Ellie, I've had enough of your constant targeting of Blizzard. It's exhausting." In the past, hearing this would make me feel ashamed and I would back down. But this time, I looked at the mess around me and stayed silent for a long time. The bite mark on my shoulder had just scabbed over and it still ached. I said, "Then let's get a divorce." I placed my hand over my stomach. If that's how it was, Vance didn't need to know I was pregnant. This child wasn't wanted, wasn't hoped for. His father didn't love his mother, so he wouldn't love him either. The divorce went smoothly. Vance's expression was grim, but when he realized I was serious, he signed the papers. "I didn't think you'd be so petty over a dog acting like a shrew." His tone was cold, almost disappointed. "If I had known, I wouldn't have married you in the first place." 3 years of marriage, all my passion reduced to being called a shrew. It was a bleak ending. That night, I packed my things and moved out. As I was leaving, Blizzard, who had always been hostile toward me, unexpectedly blocked the door. Vance called it several times, but it wouldn't budge. Blizzard stared intently at the bag in my hand. I suddenly realized it was a toy I had bought to try to win its affection. But Blizzard had never liked it, so the packaging was still intact. But since I was leaving, I was taking everything I had bought. Even if I donated it to a shelter, I wasn't going to waste my effort on something so thankless. In the standoff, Vance forcefully pulled Blizzard away. As I left, I heard Blizzard let out a pitiful whine. But I didn't look back. I heard Vance's angry scolding. "She's so cold-hearted she doesn't want you anymore and you're still trying to keep her?" How embarrassing. I was the heartless villain in his eyes, someone who made him feel ashamed and angry. Before entering the operating room, the doctor asked me one last time if I was sure about terminating the pregnancy. I touched my stomach, my fingers twitching. It felt as if a little life was reaching out to me through my clothes. My mother's health wasn't good and I was her only child. It seemed to run in the family. My grandmother had also only had one daughter. The child in my womb might be the only descendant I would ever have. So I hesitated, postponing the surgery and telling the doctor I needed more time to think. I called my best friend to pick me up. As I left the hospital, I ran into someone familiar. Sasha was holding Vance's arm, laughing about something. Vance saw me too. When he noticed I was coming out of the hospital, he frowned and stepped forward. "Why were you at the hospital? Are you feeling unwell?" I instinctively slapped his hand away, taking a step back, my tone distant. "None of your business." Vance's expression darkened, but before he could say more, Sasha sashayed over. "Vance, the movie's about to start. Let's go." Then, as if she had just noticed me, she covered her mouth in mock surprise. "Hi, do you know Vance? I'm Sasha, his girlfriend." She emphasized the word, girlfriend. I didn't believe for a second that she didn't know about my relationship with Vance. Her words felt like a provocation. Just then, my best friend arrived. Hearing Sasha, she immediately fired back. "What girlfriend? They're married. At best, you're the other woman, and you have the nerve to flaunt it in front of the wife." Sasha's face fell, but she forced a smile, turning to Vance with teary eyes. "Vance." With a face so similar to Celeste's, her red-rimmed eyes tugged at Vance's heartstrings. Vance predictably was moved. He glanced at me, his tone calm. "We're divorced." I didn't understand before, but meeting Sasha made me realize what true love is. "Sasha is my partner now. Please show some respect." My best friend was stunned, looking at me in disbelief. I hadn't told her about the divorce, and I had lied about going to the hospital for a pregnancy checkup. I had planned to tell her everything after the termination. Seeing Sasha's smug expression, my best friend exploded. "Vance, have you lost your mind? Why did you divorce? Do you even know Ellie is?" I quickly tried to stop her, but it was too late. My best friend blurted out, "Ellie's pregnant, and you divorced her for this homewrecker? Vance, are you even human?" The surroundings fell silent. Sasha's teary expression froze. Vance's head snapped up, his eyes locking onto my stomach. He looked dazed, ignoring my resistance as he grabbed my wrist. "Ellie, is it true?" Vance's voice was hoarse as he gently touched my stomach. "Is there, our child here?" Sasha tried to pull Vance away, but he didn't budge, stomping her foot in frustration. Vance didn't even glance at her, his eyes fixed on me as he declared, "My child can't grow up without a father. We're going to the courthouse to remarry." I almost laughed. 3 years of my companionship and waiting hadn't warmed Vance's heart. I couldn't compare to the dog Celeste left behind. Not even to a lookalike replacement. He had been so quick to divorce me, so why the act now? I shook off his hand, my voice cold. "There's no child. It was a mix-up with the test results." I lied, not wanting to be entangled with Vance because of the baby. Sasha immediately relaxed, wiping away fake tears as she looked at me pitifully. "Ellie, even if you want to remarry, there's no need to lie to Vance with your friend's help." Vance's eyes flashed with disappointment. After the emotional roller coaster, he was furious. "I always knew you were petty, but now you're lying too?" He wrapped an arm around Sasha's waist, his tone disdainful. "Someone like you would only raise a terrible child. Stubborn, petty, and a liar." My best friend was about to argue, but I stopped her. Watching the two of them walk away arm in arm, I touched my stomach, my resolve hardening once more. A child born without love would never be happy. I turned back to the hospital and agreed to the surgery. Vance announced his new relationship on social media. The comments were filled with relief. I always knew Vance was devoted. Even after marriage, he never forgot Celeste. Sasha's photo was scrutinized. "She looks about 50% like Celeste, but Celeste had better grace." Still, having someone similar must ease Vance's pain. "Exactly. Much better than Ellie. She seemed gentle at first, but who knew she'd be so jealous and cruel? I heard she always bullied Celeste's dog. How pathetic, picking on a dog. Good thing Vance didn't put up with her. He divorced her, and now Ellie must be full of regrets. Here's to Vance and Sasha. She looks like Celeste, so she must be just as kind." After the surgery, I rested for a few days. Then I went to Vance's company to settle the division of assets post-divorce. As soon as I entered, I was met with stares from the employees. Some looked sympathetic, others gleeful. I ignored them and walked straight into Vance's office. Vance wasn't there, but Sasha was sitting on the couch. She looked surprised when she saw me, then stood up. "Ellie, are you here to see Vance? He went to buy me cake." I told him the place was far, but he said he'd go anywhere for me. Sasha's tone was complaining, but there was a hint of pride. I didn't respond. Vance was indeed a patient man. He would search every pet store to find the perfect environment for Blizzard. But not for me. Whenever I asked him to get me bubble tea, he'd go to the nearest place. He thought my preferred brand was too far and that I was being picky. Sasha started showing off the necklaces and jewelry Vance had bought her. I couldn't help but ask, Do you know you're just a replacement? She looked so much like Celeste, and in Vance's friend's eyes, she was nothing more than a cheap stand-in. Sasha's face stiffened, but she quickly recovered. What does a dead woman matter? If I can win Blizzard's affection, I can replace her owner step by step. I'm young, beautiful, and know how to charm men better than you. Sasha smiled confidently, mocking me. Ellie, maybe you should reflect on why, after 3 years, you couldn't even surpass a dead woman. Maybe you're just not good enough. Sasha wasn't wrong. She was indeed skilled. In just a month, Vance announced their engagement. That night she sent me a taunting message. This is just the beginning. In 6 months, I'll make Vance forget Celeste entirely. The day they got engaged, social media was flooded with posts. Sasha shared a video with the caption, "Thanks to my ex for the divorce, I found true love with my husband." In the video, Sasha looked elegant in a high-end gown, smiling warmly. Vance, handsome as ever, held a meticulously groomed Blizzard. The trio looked picture-perfect. But Vance seemed distracted, frequently glancing at his phone as if waiting for a message. My best friend called, her tone furious. "Is Vance insane? He keeps asking if you're really pregnant." My heart sank. "What did you say?" She replied, "I denied it, of course. Since you're divorced, there's no need to stay connected to that scumbag." "Oh, and guess what I told him?" She chuckled. I said, 3 years of marriage and no kids? Vance, are you impotent? Maybe you're destined to be childless." I laughed, but the humor quickly faded. No, Vance loved Sasha. They'd have children soon. I touched my stomach, the little life now gone. Guilt washed over me and I silently apologized. "Sorry, little one. Your mom wasn't strong enough to give you a happy family." To help me move on from the failed marriage, my family quickly set me up on blind dates. Friends also enthusiastically introduced me to potential partners. One of them was Evan, a 21-year-old college student. Sunny, handsome, and the type of guy everyone liked. After our first meeting, he started pursuing me relentlessly. I felt I was too old and divorced, so I kept refusing. But Evan had an irresistible charm. His beautiful eyes blinked as he playfully called me sis, making it hard to say no. So I agreed to a weekend outing. Evan was lively, taking me to an escape room and then board games. Perhaps drawn to his youthful energy, I found myself relaxing for the first time in a long while. As we left the mall, laughing and chatting, we ran into Vance and Sasha. Sasha looked haggard, trailing behind Vance, her voice pleading. "I didn't know Blizzard hated purple. I won't buy it again. Please don't be mad." The two were bickering, Vance's face dark. Sasha didn't understand why Vance was upset about the purple clothes. But I did. Celeste had been wearing a purple dress the day she died. And I knew the reason in the most painful way. It was our wedding anniversary. I had spent 6 hours getting ready, excited for our date. As soon as we met, Blizzard suddenly lunged and tore my dress. The look on Vance's face still made me shiver. He flipped the table in front of everyone, splashing soup all over me. I was given the silent treatment for 3 months, locked out of the house. All because I had worn a purple dress on our date. But Sasha was clearly more favored. After some coaxing, Vance's expression softened. "Don't let it happen again." The two became inseparable once more. When Vance looked up, he saw me standing not far away. His pupils dilated, a mix of surprise and something else. But then he noticed Evan beside me. Evan was holding my bag, playfully begging me to take a walk in the park with him. Vance's face twisted and he suddenly strode over. He forcefully separated me from Evan, demanding, "Who is he?" Caught off guard, I stared at Vance, his eyes red with anger. "Ellie, you've already moved on? You really don't waste any time." Vance took a deep breath, then slapped me. I didn't have time to react before I stumbled, my cheek instantly swelling. "No wonder you wanted a divorce. You're so desperate for men. If you're that needy, just come to my place. I wouldn't turn you away." Vance's cruel words were cut off by a punch. Evan, furious, pulled me behind him and swung at Vance. "Who do you think you are, hitting her? You're disgusting." Evan, who loved fitness and had trained in Taekwondo, quickly drew blood from Vance. It wasn't until security arrived that the two were separated. Evan's lip was split, but he gently reassured me he was fine. Sasha, stunned, rushed to help Vance up. Before leaving, she glared at me. "This isn't over. You'll pay for this." At the hospital, I carefully tended to Evan's wounds. He looked up at me with unwavering eyes, his expression gentle. I felt a bit flustered under his gaze and turned away. "I'm sorry for causing you trouble, getting you hurt." My voice was filled with guilt, but Evan brushed it off. "Sis, it's not your fault. Anyone would have done the same. If I see him again, I'll hit him again." Evan was young, sincere, and straightforward. During his recovery, our relationship grew closer. Evan secretly prepared a romantic setting to confess his feelings. I pretended not to notice, playing along. But just as I was about to meet him, I received a call. Vance's voice was icy. "Ellie, care to explain the 30-something packages at my door?" When I arrived, the packages were already opened. Baby clothes, wipes, socks, even formula were scattered everywhere. Vance stood amidst the mess, his eyes bloodshot. "You said you weren't pregnant. Then what's with all this?" I had ordered them early, many on pre-sale. After moving out, I forgot to change the address. Vance's eyes were filled with rage as he glared at me. I checked the hospital. You terminated it. You terminated our child. A tear rolled down Vance's cheek as he nearly screamed. Ellie, how could you do this? That was our child. How could you be so heartless, not even telling me? Vance pushed me against the wall, kissing me fiercely. I bit his lip until it bled, but he didn't let go. The metallic taste of blood filled my mouth. Vance's voice was choked as he held me tightly. Ellie, stop this. Let's get back together. I didn't know what Vance was feeling when he said this. All these years he had been indifferent and cold toward me. My place in his life was even below a dog. And now a life stood between us. Hearing Vance say this only made me feel sick. I slapped him hard across the face. Vance stumbled, his cheek reddening. I expected him to be angry, but instead he relaxed. Are you mad about the slap? Hit me again if it makes you feel better. His affectionate tone disgusted me. Fine. If you want to get back together, send Blizzard away. I knew Blizzard was Vance's weak spot. He hesitated, but soon he seemed to make up his mind. If you agree to remarry, I'll send it away. His words felt like a condescending offer. I didn't want to waste any more breath. I grabbed my bag and left. Vance called after me. Ellie, I think you need time to cool off. I'll give you space, but I hope you'll reconsider. Don't mind Celeste. She's been gone for years. We need to move forward. Honestly, I did have feelings for you. Our marriage wasn't so bad. Once you calm down, let's remarry. You can have whatever you want. The area was remote, and as night fell, it was hard to find a cab. Vance offered to drive me, but his phone rang. Sasha's voice was tearful. Vance, my boss is forcing me to attend a drinking party. They're touching me. I'm hiding in the bathroom, scared. The man who had just begged me to remarry was instantly panicked. A girl who looked like Celeste was being harassed. Vance punched a tree, his fist bleeding. Those bastards. How dare they touch her? Ellie, I'll call a friend to drive you. I have to go to Sasha. Before leaving, Vance hesitated, but Sasha's crying left him no choice. The friend Vance promised never showed. He was always like this. His promises as unreliable as clouds. It started to rain. I hid under a tree, finally catching a cab 2 hours later. A notification sounded. Sasha's text was laced with disdain. Sis, you lost again. He chose me. I returned home, drenched and feverish. When I woke up, my phone was flooded with calls and texts from Vance. He apologized, even promised to break things off with Sasha if I remarried him. But I refused. After a few days of silence, I thought he had given up. Then I received a package. It was a plain, square box. But something about it made me uneasy. When I opened it, I was met with a gruesome sight. Blood splattered everywhere and I froze in horror. Vance's voice was disturbingly calm. Ellie, you hated it for biting you. So I cut off its mouth as an apology. Okay. Inside the box was a chunk of bloody dog meat. After that day I had nightmares for weeks. Truly terrified, I blocked Vance on everything and even moved. Vance tried to find me several times but failed. Finally, he snapped, Ellie, don't push your luck. Vance started flaunting his relationship with Sasha. Blizzard's sudden death caused quite a stir. People gossiped, asking why we divorced. Was it because I abused the dog, showing sociopathic tendencies that led to Blizzard's death? Vance remained silent, neither confirming nor denying. The rumor spread like wildfire. Animal rights groups, shelters, and dog lovers condemned me. They dug up my ID and work information. Overnight, I became public enemy #1. Only then did I understand what Vance meant by pushing my luck. My best friend wanted to defend me, but I stopped her. Don't worry. Vance won't gloat for long. Out of solidarity, I called Sasha. Don't marry Vance. He's not the man you think he is. Sasha was surprised to hear from me. What? Jealous. She thought I was trying to sabotage their wedding out of spite. I hesitated, then decided to warn her. Celeste and I are proof. Vance is more ruthless than you realize. Listen, lady, just because you failed doesn't mean I will. You got what you deserved, kicked to the curb. Sasha's tone was cutting, her excitement at marrying into wealth clouding her judgment. She dropped her sweet act, her words venomous. As for Celeste, that dead woman got what was coming. Her accident just made room for me. Someone called her and she hung up. I held the evidence gathered by a private investigator, but in the end I couldn't bring myself to use it. I texted Sasha. Do you really think Celeste died in an accident? But a red exclamation mark appeared. The message didn't go through. Sasha had blocked me. The day of Vance and Sasha's wedding, my social media was flooded. Whether it was the makeup or something else, Sasha, who usually resembled Celeste by about 50%, looked nearly identical in the videos. People who knew Celeste were stunned. Is that really Celeste? I froze for a second. Is Vance marrying Sasha or Celeste? He must regret not having a wedding with Celeste. This is so touching. It's like a wedding for his late wife. I'm tearing up. I wish I had a man this devoted. The comments were filled with praise for Vance and sorrow for Celeste. My best friend saw me staring at my phone and thought I was upset. She comforted me. She's just a replacement. Beauty fades. Vance will replace her with someone younger soon. But I wasn't sad, I was disgusted. I used to lament that I could never compare to Celeste. I didn't blame Vance for not loving me. I only wished I had met him sooner. But now, knowing the truth, I felt only revulsion. To be loved by Vance was a curse. Sasha, basking in her triumph, was just another victim. On the way to the wedding, Evan stopped me. I didn't want to drag him into this. I planned to ruin Vance alone. But Evan stubbornly insisted he could protect me. His sincerity was unwavering. After a few seconds, I gave in. On the way, I brought a box. Evan didn't ask, just silently carried it for me. Vance and Sasha's wedding was grand. They invited almost everyone in their circle, even all their employees. Sasha wore a massive diamond ring. Her neck and wrists were adorned with expensive jewelry. Reportedly, she had insisted on the extravagance, even inviting TV reporters. And Vance had indulged her. Rumors swirled that this was actually Vance's wedding to Celeste. Vance, tall and handsome, stood beside the delicate Sasha. They looked picture perfect. Then I walked in with the box. "Vance, are you marrying Sasha or Celeste today?" My words were a bombshell, shattering the facade. Vance's face darkened and he called for security. But Sasha remained calm, even smiling. "Does it matter? I'm the one standing here, not a dead woman." Her composure eased the tension. I looked at her, then at Vance, my tone steady. "A dead woman? Do you really think it's that simple?" I opened the box. A bloody, mangled piece of flesh was revealed. A surveillance video played. From the package arriving at my door to my horrified reaction. And Vance's chilling words. "I've sent Blizzard to you. Forgive me, please." The crowd erupted in chaos. Reporters seized the moment, cameras flashing. The rumors about me abusing dogs were debunked. The news of Vance, the CEO, killing his dog trended instantly. The insults once directed at me now targeted Vance. His social media was flooded with hate. Security rushed to remove me. Vance sneered. "You think this will ruin my wedding? It's just a dog. Who cares?" It was his dog. For someone as powerful as Vance, killing a dog would only bring temporary backlash. But my revenge wasn't over. I had promised to destroy Vance. For me, for Celeste, and for Sasha. Vance would pay for his crimes. I played another surveillance video. In an elevator, a young girl was on the phone. "Yao's Bakery, the one on West Jian Road, right? Got it. 7 o'clock sharp? I've never heard of that. Okay, I'll be there at 7 to get the first batch." The elevator doors opened and the girl turned, revealing her face. It was Celeste. I held up a stack of documents for the cameras. Celeste's death was ruled an accident. But a year before, Vance had taken out a massive life insurance policy on her. The car involved in the crash had ties to Vance. These are the transaction records. Celeste's death wasn't an accident. I stared at Vance's pale, twisted face, enunciating each word. It was premeditated murder for insurance money. The revelation caused an uproar. Vance's dog killing and insurance fraud scandal dominated headlines. His decade-long image as a devoted lover crumbled. Vance and Celeste had been inseparable, starting a business together after graduation. They had lived in basements, shared instant noodles. Vance had tearfully vowed to cherish Celeste forever. Celeste had cut ties with her family, investing all her savings in Vance. A virtuous wife lifts her husband to greatness and he repays her with gold. Vance's promise remained unfulfilled. His businesses failed, leaving him in debt. Desperate, he turned his gaze to Celeste, who had stood by him. After her death, the insurance payout became his startup capital. This time he succeeded, transforming from a poor boy to the admired CEO. With his career stable, Vance began to miss his first love. Guilt-ridden, he turned Blizzard into a symbol of his remorse. His obsession with Celeste grew, his behavior increasingly erratic. He crafted an image of a devoted, loyal man on social media. Public outrage grew daily. Vance's company's stock plummeted, and the wedding ended in shambles. The police took the case and Vance's family hired a high-priced legal team. But in court, Vance confessed. He looked at the camera, almost relieved. He seemed unhinged, his eyes wild. "Celeste, Blizzard, I'll see you both soon. We'll be together forever." After Vance was imprisoned, Sasha found me. Her expression was complex. "So that's what you meant that day." I didn't feel close to her, so I turned to leave. Sasha's voice, hesitant, came from behind. "Thank you." I paused but didn't look back. "While you're young, focus on improving yourself. Don't rely on men. They're more dangerous than you think." With that, I walked away, leaving Sasha standing there, lost in thought. In Vance's second year in prison, I received a call. He wanted to see me. I studied the man before me. Vance had a buzz cut. He was thinner, darker, with dark circles under his eyes. He grew agitated upon seeing me, slamming into the glass. I watched coldly until he calmed down. "In my life, I've wronged two people, you and Celeste." A long overdue apology. I didn't feel joy or disgust. Instead, I felt an odd sense of calm. Vance's words no longer stirred any emotion in me. "If I could start over, I'd make it up to you both. I'd never do something so terrible." Vance spoke earnestly, his eyes bright, almost childlike. I shook my head. "But there are no second chances. And even if there were..." I picked up my bag, walking away, my tone steady. "Someone like you belongs in hell. No one wants your crocodile tears." Vance wasn't remorseful or enlightened. All these years he had countless opportunities to confess or atone. But he chose to live in denial, enjoying his comfortable life. Only in prison did he truly fear enough to reflect. Vance's sobs echoed behind me, but I was already outside. The weather was beautiful, the sunset radiant. The past was behind me. From now on I was reborn.